I saw the clouds rising from the temple and the undertaker standing in the clouds like a god or Buddha. He possessed extraordinary powers and even dispelled the snowstorm with a wave of his hand. Jangi remained silent, listening quietly to Pjigon's story. It was hard to believe, completely like a rumor from a supernatural novel. But coming from Pjigon himself, it was hard not to believe him. You mean that the gods and Buddhas protected him? Or is he himself a god or Buddha, the lord of the corpse who has been reborn through reincarnation? Jangi stared at him and asked slowly. Pjigon nodded. Yes. In the past, I didn't believe in these things either, even though I grew up listening to these stories. But now, I believe it wholeheartedly. And in the ancient scriptures passed down by our elders, there is such a record. When King Geyser, who represents light and justice, returns, the demon kingdom will reappear in the human world. The great snow mountain will collapse, the seal of the demon kingdom will be broken, and calamities will invade the world from the abyss. The world will also enter a new cycle of reincarnation. Jangi listened silently to Pjigon's legend, appearing calm on the surface. It was just a legend, and Pjigon deliberately exaggerated the mysterious and dangerous atmosphere, but Jangi wasn't buying it. Seeing this, Pjigon took a deep breath and pushed his fat body back into his chair. Your Excellency, do you think these things are absurd? Jangi nodded, a little. Pjigon sighed, looked up at the ceiling, and said slowly, in the past, I would have thought so too. But now, the many changes in the world have changed my view. He looked at Jangi with a deep gaze. Your Excellency Chaos, you are one of the few people in the Huashu Kingdom who has traveled to Star Island across the ocean and ventured deep into the Qinling Mountains. You have a deeper understanding of the mysterious underground world than most people. Don't you want to know what the mysterious world beneath the earth is like? Jangi finally took a serious look at Pjigon. I don't know, do you? Pjigon's small mustache curled upward, and his expression was sly. I have the information you want. The snowy plateau still preserves the original text of the Epic of King Geyser, and it is in my Pji family, the only copy in existence. This is the most comprehensive information about the underground world in the entire Huashu Kingdom, past and present. The ancestors of the Pji family were once the historians of the great dynasty established by King Geyser. Their ancestors started out as historians and slowly grew in power. Since the cultural heritage of the snowy plateau was in the hands of the nobility, commoners were not allowed to learn to read or write and did not even have surnames. They could only exist as serfs of the nobility. Therefore, the position of historian was passed down for thousands of years and enjoyed a high status. As a result, after generations of accumulation, the Pji family became one of the foremost prestigious Tusi families in the snowy plateau. Zhangyi's eyes narrowed. Only the 4 major regions were participating in the operation in the underground of the Qinling Mountains. The details of the mission were strictly confidential. The East Sea region and Southwest region were not involved in the mission, so they couldn't possibly know about their experiences in the underground world. However, Pjigon had described it accurately. Could it be that he really knew something that no one else knew? The snowy plateau was a mysterious land. Throughout the history of the Huashu civilization, it had been ruled by other civilizations for a long time. Therefore, it has retained its unique civilization and cultural heritage. Even the several fires that burned down the civilization in history failed to completely destroy the culture of the snowy plateau. Zhangyi's gaze was solemn. Pjigon had hit the nail on the head. The black-armored mutants of Mist Valley on Star Island, and the white dragon that could transform into human form under the Qinling Mountains. He deeply feared those powerful beings. What's more, he had taken precious things from them. The source of God on Star Island and the purple crystal from the depths of the Qinling Mountains. To this day, the Sky Dragon King's warning before his death still echoed in Zhangyi's mind. He hated this feeling of uncertainty. Only by understanding the origins of these mysterious beings could he find a way to deal with them. Pji Tusi, the stories you told me are very interesting, and I am indeed a little interested. But what do you want me to do? You must know that in this world, if you want to get something, you must pay an equal or even greater price in exchange. Jangi spoke his mind bluntly. The smile on Tussi Paji's face grew even wider. He wasn't afraid that Jangi would negotiate, he was afraid that Jangi wouldn't be interested in what he had to say. In fact, Tussi Paji was even more anxious than Jangi. Because looking at the entire Huashu kingdom, perhaps only Jangi could help him. Tussi Paji said, 3 months later, in Sangha Temple in Sara City, the annual Dharma assembly will be held. At the same time, that is also the day when our 4 great Tussi families will join forces to open the Demon Kingdom's gates sealed under the Great Snow Mountain. I hope that when the time comes, you can help me seize the treasure under the Great Snow Mountain. Jangi raised his eyelids. The Demon Kingdom's doors? Treasure? That sounds a bit ridiculous. If I hadn't heard you say that just now, I would have thought you were possessed by demons. Pjigon smiled and then sighed deeply. You're right. Who would believe such an absurd myth? But now, all of this has indeed come true. The ballads of King Geezer have been passed down in the snowy plateau. Every generation of heavenly poets would awaken their memories and sing these ancient stories. Therefore, no one could hide the truth of history. The existence of the Demon Kingdom is engraved in the minds of every citizen of the snowy region. They believe in it without a doubt and know that King Geezer destroyed the Demon Kingdom and suppressed its lair in the Great Snow Mountain. Therefore, for the citizens of the snowy region, the Great Snow Mountain is both a sacred mountain to be worshipped and a lair full of danger and fear. The Demon Kingdom beneath the Great Snow Mountain is similar to the abyss beneath the Qinling Mountains or the Mist Valley on Star Island. Pjigon said with unshakable conviction. Ever since that night, when I saw the Buddha's light descend from the Great Snow Mountain onto the Undertaker, I knew that something extraordinary was hidden beneath it. And the 4 Tussi families have the map to the Demon Kingdom in our hands. In next year's Dharma assembly, he narrowed his eyes and lowered his voice to Jangi. The 4 Tussi families have agreed to combine the maps in our possession. Then we will go to the Demon Kingdom together to find the substance that can give people great power. Oh, right, that probably includes the source of God that you found, as well as some other wonderful things. Jangi looked at Pjigon and stared at him for more than 10 seconds. Jangi narrowed his eyes, his gaze filled with undisguised doubt. If there really is such a good thing, why did you come to me? I'm an outsider. Aren't you afraid that I'll take away your opportunity? There was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. During his trip to Xinjiang, Jangi had experienced a major crisis in the Qinling Mountains. If it hadn't been for the most critical moment, there was no telling why White Dragon didn't kill them. Now, it was uncertain whether Jangi and the other 4 would have even made it back alive. Therefore, Jangi would not be easily swayed by others. Pjigon pondered for a long time before saying, the 4 Tussi have an agreement that matters concerning the snowy plateau can only be resolved internally. Outsiders are absolutely not allowed to get involved. But now, we are at a critical moment of life and death, and I can't care about that anymore. Pjigon knew that Jangi was a man who never let his guard down. No one dared to easily deceive an epsilon. So he stayed here and told Jangi about the current situation in the snowy plateau. At the beginning of the end of the world, the 4 great families were led by the Pji family. The Pji family had the most power, the most private soldiers, and the most influence among the people of the snowy region. But all that changed after the birth of an undertaker in the Yashi Langtai family. The current undertaker comes from a branch of the Yashi Langtai family. After receiving guidance from the Buddha's light on the holy mountain, he leaped to become a powerful being in the Epsilon realm. This transcendent power instantly brought the entire snowy plateau, including the warring mutant groups in the Sichuan-Chongqing region, to their knees. According to the timeline, when the Undertaker was promoted to Epsilon, Jangi was still in young manner, fighting a battle of wits and courage with the people of West Mountain Base. Therefore, at that time, the Undertaker used his absolute power to make the Yashi Langtai family the uncrowned king of the entire southwest region. When one family dominates, the balance is broken. The Yashi Langtai family quickly seized power, and the clan chief of the Yashi Langtai family, Daiji, also stole the position of chief monk of Sangha Temple. The Snowy Plateau was a theocracy, and the chief monk of Sangha Temple was the religious leader of Tantra. Now, the Yashilangtai family held absolute power and could even issue orders in the name of gods and Buddhas. Pjigon said with a solemn expression, to use an ancient Huashu saying, the Yashilangtai family's ambition is as obvious as the sky to the moon. In the past 2 years, the power of our other 3 families has been rapidly eroded. It's only a matter of time before they destroy us. If they get their hands on the treasure of the Demon Kingdom under the Great Snow Mountain, we're finished. That's why I came here this time. Although they deliberately sent me away, I'm also looking for opportunities to contact powerful allies. After listening to Pjigon's explanation, Jangi couldn't help but nod. Where there are people, there is struggle. This is true. I have a few questions I want to ask you. Jangi said indifferently. Pjigon hurriedly said, please speak. Jangi said, first, if the Yashilangtai family really has Epsilon in their possession, then destroying you would be a piece of cake. As far as I know, due to the special nature of the Southwest region, you don't have the power to launch the Reaper of Love. Then Epsilon is invincible. Then why are you still here? Pjigon sighed deeply. It's a long story. Although the Undertaker belongs to the Yashilangtai family, all of the Undertakers have had the purest hearts and the most devout Buddhist nature. They would never kill innocent people indiscriminately. They are the guardian deities of the people of the snowy region. Therefore, unless Deji finds a suitable reason, it is impossible to convince the Undertaker to destroy our 3 families. However, because the Undertaker is too simple-minded, sooner or later he may be seduced by Deji. Your Excellency Chaos, you may not know that we live in fear every day, afraid that we will wake up the next day to find the army of the Yashilangtai family at our door. This made Jangi very curious. Pure people? How pure could they be? Second question. Why choose me? Jangi asked his biggest question. If you just want to seek outside help, then without a doubt, the Xinjiang region is the best choice. With their strength, they can easily suppress the Southwest region. Pjigon shook his head with a smile. If it were absolutely necessary, then that might be my choice. He pointed outside, look, I brought a large number of personal guards with me this time. My convoy is very large, but it's not my intention to show off my wealth. A flash of understanding crossed Jangi's eyes. You want to come here to seek refuge? Pjigon nodded helplessly. That is indeed my intention. I need to transfer some of my property in advance. If I really can't stay in the snowy plateau, I will apply for protection from Xinjiang. But I will not let the Xinjiang region get involved in the struggle of the Southwest region. Because once this giant joins the struggle of the Southwest region, it will completely destroy our 1,000-year-old foundation. Jangi understood this very well. The Xinjiang region was still the nominal big brother of the Huashu kingdom. If they discovered the secret of the Great Snow Mountain, they would definitely intervene. After all, Xinjiang had already gained enough benefits from the Qinling Mountains, and they knew what discovering an underground secret realm meant. When that time came, Xinjiang would directly take over the Great Snow Mountain. Even if the Southwest region got a share of the pie, it would only be a small piece. After all, everything underground belonged to the entire Huashu kingdom, and the 4 Tusi had no right to possess it. Leaving them a small share was already a huge favor. Pjigon said, seeking help from other regions is the same. Clashes between regions would cause too much trouble, and the consequences would be difficult to control. As he spoke, he looked intently at Jangi. But you are different, Your Excellency. Although you are a member of the Jiangnan region, I know that you do not belong to the Jiangnan region headquarters. You are an independent individual, like a mercenary. Then you can come and help me as a free man. That way, the impact can be minimized. That was Pjigon's idea. Jangi also understood. No wonder Pjigon had been so enthusiastic towards him since arriving in Xinjiang. Especially the look in his eyes, as if he had discovered a treasure. Jangi smiled faintly. Are you so sure? Maybe I'll take everything away and leave you empty-handed. Pjigon smiled confidently and said, what you want is not power, land, or subjects. I've investigated your background and I know this very well. As long as it's not those things, I don't care. Even if you take the treasure under the Great Snow Mountain, I won't lose much. I can't get it, but as long as the Yashilangtai family doesn't get it, it's fine. Pjigon wasn't ignorant of the principle of inviting wolves into one's home. But right now, there was a fierce tiger lurking in his home, and he had no choice. Either he left the southwest region and became a dog without a home, or he found a powerful ally and took a gamble. Even if he failed, the worst outcome would be no worse than his current situation. Jangi lowered his head and pondered. To be honest, he was indeed tempted. If there really was a secret realm similar to Qinling Mountain and Mist Valley under the Great Snow Mountain, it would definitely be a huge treasure trove for him. What's more, if King Geezer was able to suppress the Demon Kingdom more than 2,000 years ago, then perhaps it could be said that the danger of this secret realm was far less than that of Qinling Mountain and Mist Valley. That might mean that this secret place was far less dangerous than the Qinling Mountains and Mist Valley. Pjigon's words were tempting, but Jangi was not a hothead. He had experienced many dangers after the apocalypse, and each time he was able to turn danger into safety because he was cautious enough. You want me to help you with just empty words? Isn't that a little too easy? Jangi glanced at Pjigon with a meaningful look. If he wanted him to help, he had to offer something really good in return. Hearing this, Pjigon gritted his teeth and said, once the matter is settled, we can split the benefits 50-50. Jangi smiled and said, you can't even say for sure whether the thing under the Great Snow Mountain really exists or what it is. Pjigon was speechless, but I don't have anything that you would want. Whether it was resources necessary for daily life or weapons and equipment, Jangi already had more than enough. If not, why would he be so generous as to give up half of the Yuan Stone Vein to invest in Deng's technology gene project? There were too few people in Tianhai City, and most of them were ordinary people who didn't need many resources. The corners of Jangi's mouth curled up slightly as he said calmly, you still have something that is very valuable to me. Pjigon's eyes widened, and he let out two helpless, bitter laughs. Are you referring to the main text of the Epic of King Geezer? The Epic of King Geezer was passed down by each generation of poets, but each version was slightly different. In addition, the story contained elements of mythology, so it was difficult to say how much of it was true. However, the only copy preserved by the Pji family was handwritten by the historian of that time. Even if there were some exaggerations, its credibility was still the highest. Jangi knew that if he wanted to find out what those creatures of the underworld really were, he had to trace them back to ancient culture. Pjigon took another deep breath. He was very fat, so whenever he got excited, he had to take a few deep breaths to calm himself down. I can give you another copy, but you must promise to represent our Pji family at next year's Dharma Assembly. Pjigon said seriously. Jangi rubbed his hands together and said casually, let me read it first. If I think it's worth it, I'll consider it. Now it was not Jangi who was anxious, but Pjigon. Now that Jangi knew about the Great Snow Mountain, even if Pjigon changed his mind, Jangi could still go to the Great Snow Mountain by himself. With his supernatural abilities in time and space, even traveling from the distant Tianhai City to the snowy plateau would only take a few tens of minutes. Pjigon's expression turned ugly. But at this moment, he really needed Jangi's help. If he wasn't forced to, how could he seek help from an outsider? After much deliberation, he could only compromise with Jangi. Soon, he took another parchment from behind him. However, to show his sincerity, this parchment was obviously thicker and contained more information. Jangi took it in his hands. Although the parchment was yellowed, it felt quite delicate to the touch. As he unfolded the parchment, he praised, "You had such good parchment-making skills 1,000 years ago. That's really amazing. You are indeed professional historians." Pjigon smiled strangely. Sheepskin is very difficult to process. Where can you find so much sheepskin? There are obviously better materials. Jangi glanced at Pjigon in surprise, and in the next moment, his hands froze. This wasn't sheepskin at all, it was clearly human skin. Thinking of some rumors about the ancient snowy plateau, Jangi didn't say anything and calmly reached out to unfold the sheepskin scroll. With the help of his intelligence system, Jangi understood the contents of the scroll. After the hero King Geyser suppressed the demon kingdom, he established a great dynasty on the snowy plateau. He ordered his historians to record his great deeds and pass them down to future generations. He reminded people not to forget that although the demon kingdom had been destroyed, the abyss had not disappeared. When the world comes to an end, the abyss of the demon realm will open, and endless demons will reappear in the human world. At that time, King Geyser will return once again to lead the people to prevent this disaster. Jangi was becoming more and more alarmed. According to the legend of King Geyser, more than 2,000 years ago, the hero King Geyser had already predicted the coming of the end of the world. Everything that was happening today was not a coincidence, but a kind of inevitability. Jangi felt a chill down his spine, but he quickly came to his senses. There had been countless doomsday prophecies throughout history, and they were all inconsistent with each other. Moreover, the legend of King Geyser did not specify the exact time when the end of the world would come. Judging from the current situation, it seemed a bit far-fetched. Although he thought so, Jangi still couldn't help but feel alarmed. He finished reading the scroll, and the intelligence system had already scanned it, so he could read it again at any time. Jangi returned the human skin to Pjigon. With all due respect, I feel that it's just average. There isn't much useful information in it, Jangi said indifferently. Pjigon was a little anxious. The entire legend of King Geyser has more than 20 million words, most of which are heroic legends of King Geyser. To obtain useful information, you must read the entire book. Jangi stood up and said slowly, I will think about it carefully. I will give you an answer when I have made up my mind. Pjigon hurriedly stood up as well. How long will you need to consider it? Jangi smiled at him, that depends on how much more you can give me to convince me to help you. At the moment, Pjigon's sincerity was indeed insufficient. Jangi was much richer than him. The head of the second largest family in the southwest region needed to consider what he could offer Jangi to impress him. Pjigon frowned deeply. He knew that Jangi was the best helper he could find at the moment. Soon, he gritted his teeth and said, All right, I'll go back to Sarah's city right away. I'll provide you with some information when I get there. I believe it will definitely impress you. All right, let's wait and see. Jangi appeared calm on the surface, but in fact, he was somewhat moved. An underground secret realm was a huge treasure trove, with both risks and rewards. If safety could be ensured, he didn't mind taking a trip there. Jangi left and returned to his residence. Everyone had already packed their things and stuffed them into Spirit Guardian's shadow space. In the corner, Fatty Sue was still holding his big face, looking absent-minded. Jangi didn't have time to wait for him to struggle, so he ordered everyone to prepare to return to Jiangnan. Fatty Sue never responded to Li Yangyang's feelings. Everyone understood. After all, if something like this happened to anyone, it would be difficult to accept right away. However, time was up, and Jangi didn't intend to wait for him, so he told everyone to pack up and get ready to leave. The next day, Jangi and the others left the courtyard. As they walked out the door, Jangi vaguely sensed a gaze fixed on them from afar. He wasn't the only one who noticed, Liang Yu and Flower also sensed it. Jangi turned his head and saw Li Yangyang standing under the pavilion in the distance, leaning against a pillar with a complicated look in her eyes. He turned back, patted Fatty Sue on the shoulder, and nodded in that direction. Fatty Sue had also been absent-minded lately, his mind a mess like a chicken coop, and he hadn't shaved for several days. He was awakened by Jangi's pat and looked over in that direction. But after just one glance, he immediately lowered his head like a frightened ostrich, pretending not to see anything. Jangi rolled his eyes. At least she's on good terms with you. She even saved your life in the Qinling mountain abyss. Isn't it a bit too much to do this? Fatty Sue muttered, I know. But now I have no idea what expression to use when I face her. Jangi was speechless. So you choose to run away? Running away is shameful, but it works. Fatty Sue argued. Jangi shrugged and agreed with Fatty Sue. Those who encourage others to be brave and face unexpected situations are either social butterflies or outsiders. It is difficult for those in the midst of a situation to calm down and face everything. Sometimes, avoidance is a good solution. Liang Yu rarely commented on other people's private affairs. But this time, she said to Fatty Sue, no matter what your final choice is, I think you should at least give her a sincere answer. I know. Fatty Sue lowered his head and deliberately walked on the other side of the road, letting others block his body. In a while, I'll talk to her properly. He didn't have the courage to say it to her face. Perhaps when he returned to Tianhai City, he would be able to say those words through the electronic device he was most familiar with. Jangi said jokingly, if those two words weren't trembling, you wouldn't find it so difficult, right? Fatty Sue's face turned the color of liver. Boss, don't say that. Fine, whatever you say. Jangi waved his hand dismissively. Before leaving, Pjigon and the others came over to see them off. Nowadays, they were paying more and more attention to Zhang Yi. Respect must be earned with strength, and the strength Zhang Yi had displayed in the Qinling Mountains had vaguely surpassed that of Li Changgong and Han Zhanzhua. This was enough to make people respect him. 1,000 miles must come to an end. Everyone, please return. After I return, I will discuss this with the leaders of the Jiangnan region, and soon we will send people to the Qinling Mountains. Before boarding the plane, Zhang Yi said to Pjigon and Zhang Daowen. Pjigon smiled and nodded. There's no rush. It hasn't been long since the last expedition against the Earth Centipede, so we don't dare to rush into mining the Yuan Stone vein. We will send teams one after another to survey the surrounding environment first. We will only start mining after ensuring that there is no danger. Zhang Yi nodded. You're right, we'll discuss it again when the time comes. The Yuan Stone vein beneath the Qinling Mountains was enormous and contained unimaginable energy. The Xinjiang region couldn't make any small moves here. Not to mention that this time, Zhang Yi had already excavated a considerable amount of Yuan Stone veins, which had piled up into dozens of tall mountains in his dimensional space. So for the time being, he wasn't in a hurry. After bidding farewell to everyone in Xinjiang, Zhang Yi and the others boarded the plane. The cigar-shaped F-37 flew out of the indoor airport, rushed into the thick clouds, and then flew southward. Fatty Sue sat by the window, his head resting on his hand, his eyes filled with turmoil and melancholy. A female attendant walked over and asked with concern, Mr. Sue, are you feeling unwell? Fatty Sue suddenly covered his face with both hands, lowered his head and said, it's nothing, I'm just a little sad. Zhang Yi watched from behind with a grim expression. Those are all my lines. Zhou Qir and Yang Xinxin beside him couldn't help but giggle. Xinjiang City grew smaller and smaller in their eyes until it was barely visible. On the vast and empty land of Xinjiang City, Liang Yang raised her head, looked at the plane gradually flying away, and silently lowered her head. Is it still difficult to accept? She pressed down on the brim of her hat, then turned and walked away, the falling snow fluttering onto her shoulders and hat, leaving them white. Zhang Yi and the others returned to Blizzard City first. The mission had been successfully completed, so they naturally had to report to Zhu first. This was out of respect for him. The news of the mission's completion had already been conveyed to Zhu by Deng Shintong, so Zhu was particularly excited today. After everyone got off the plane, they were warmly welcomed by a delegation led by Zhu. As soon as the cabin door opened and Zhang Yi stepped off the plane, Zhu took 3 steps at a time and walked over, shaking Zhang Yi's hand tightly. Chaos, ha ha ha, my Captain Chaos, you are truly a treasure of the Jiangnan region. I didn't expect this matter to be completed so perfectly in less than a month. You are all great contributors to the Jiangnan region. Behind Zhu were Zhu Yu, Bai Li Changqing, Wu Di, and many others, most of whom were old acquaintances of Zhang Yi. Zhu had brought them along specifically to play the emotional card with Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi smiled secretly. Zhu Jing definitely had channels and knew that Jangi had 30% of the Yuan stone veins in his hands. He was afraid that he would be shameless and ask Jangi for more later. Jangi exchanged a few casual pleasantries and looked carefully at the group of people who came to greet him, only to find that there were many familiar faces. Apart from the mutants from Blizzard City, there were also many members of the Superpower Federation who had been in Jiangnan region when Eclipse Moon invaded. These mutants, who were scattered all over the place and responsible for maintaining local order, had grown tremendously in the 2 years since the apocalypse. Perhaps some of them had fallen, and new mutants had taken over their territory. But none of those who had survived to this day were simple characters. Among the people who attended the first Superpower Federation gathering, at least 50% had joined Blizzard City. Blizzard City is growing stronger and stronger, which is a cause for celebration. Jangi said to Zhu Jing with a smile. Zhu Jing sighed lightly. Jiangnan is too big, and there are too many problems. We will always need more manpower, so we must keep recruiting. It was not easy to be the head of the Jiangnan region. Jangi naturally knew this. The Jiangnan region was too large, and Tianhai City was located by the sea. Furthermore, due to Yuan Kongyue's conspiracy, most of the survivors in Tianhai City had been killed. Therefore, now that the population of Tianhai City had dwindled, the power structure had stabilized, and there were not many conflicts. However, the situation was different in other places. The number of survivors in a medium-sized city could reach hundreds of thousands. In addition, with relatively abundant food resources in rural areas, the survivors scattered across the country did not obey the restrictions of the Jiangnan region. Therefore, factions formed everywhere, and small forces were scattered all over the place, countless in number. In the cities surrounding Tianhai City alone, there were no less than 20 organizations of various sizes. However, because they knew that Zhang Yi was in Tianhai City, no one dared to approach Tianhai City's sphere of influence. Where there are people, there is conflict. In order to obtain food, energy for warmth, and clothing, it was normal for factions large and small to fight each other. In addition, some animals had mutated and become ferocious beasts that wreaked havoc in the area. These were mainly wild beasts from the mountains and rivers. There were also vicious dogs and mutated cat demons in remote mountain villages. As the commander of the Jiangnan region, Zhu Zheng's desk was filled with reports from various areas every day, and he needed to assign people to handle them. The position of head of this region seemed glorious, but it was also very demanding and not easy to handle. What you need now is an epsilon who will obey your orders. Zhang Yi said to Zhu Jing with a smile, then glanced at Zhu Yu, who was not far behind him. How is your goddaughter doing lately? Has she made any progress in her strength? Zhu Jing said, her body has now developed to the level of an adult, and she has already undergone combat training. She is only one step away from reaching the Epsilon realm. His eyes were slightly regretful, but she just can't seem to take that last step. Zhang Yi said indifferently, she is not Yuan Kongyue after all. Jiu only had half of Yuan Kongyue's genes, so her upper limit was not as high as Yuan Kongyue's. If she wanted to break through, the only way was to use the source of God. But Zhang Yi would never help her. If he had anything good, he would only consider the people around him first. Zhu Jing knew Zhang Yi well, so he didn't ask him for help. Instead, he smiled and said, let's not talk about that. You've completed your mission successfully, so stay here today and have a few drinks with me. Then tell me all about your experiences in Xinjiang. The group enthusiastically invited Zhang Yi and the others back. The banquet was very grand, but Zhang Yi slowly took a cup of hot tea from his bosom instead of choosing to drink alcohol. Zhu Zheng and the others were already accustomed to Zhang Yi's caution, so they did not show any displeasure. However, the people sitting at their table were all important figures. There were Zhu Zheng, Deng Yuanbo, Deng Shintong, and the Minister of War, Tu Yunlai. On Zhang Yi's side, there were only him and Yang Xinqin. After toasting and complimenting Zhang Yi and the others on their hard work, they asked about their experiences in Xinjiang. Zhang Yi glanced at Deng Shintong and gave a concise account. Of course, he omitted anything that should not be said. For example, he did not mention the powerful and mysterious snake people civilization they encountered in the abyss. Even Deng Shintong and Jangi didn't tell anyone about this, only the people close to them knew. But even with just this, Zhu Zheng and the others couldn't help but feel emotional. Zhu Zheng said, "I didn't expect there to be such dangers under the Qinling Mountains. If one day, my Jiangnan region encounters such monsters, what should we do?" He sighed deeply, his eyes full of worry. Deng Yuanbo smiled and looked at Zhang Yi, saying, "Fortunately, we have Captain Chaos." Zhang Yi smiled slightly, neither confirming nor denying it. Risk and opportunity coexist. The appearance of a secret realm in the Jiangnan region is not necessarily a bad thing. If handled well, the Jiangnan region may rise to become a top power. Zhu Zheng smiled. That's true. If Xingjing hadn't obtained the source of God in Yuan or from beneath the Qinling Mountains, how could it have become the leader of the 6 major regions of the Huaxu Kingdom? When Yuan or was mentioned, Zhang Yi just smiled slightly and didn't reply. Zhu Zheng ended the topic at the right moment. Halfway through the meal, Zhu Zheng said that he couldn't hold his liquor and left the table. However, he asked Zhang Yi to leave with him. At this moment, it was time to get down to business. Nowadays, the 2 real power figures in the Jiangnan region were discussing topics that others were not qualified to listen to. Zhang Yi and Zhu Zheng came to the back lounge. After the two sat down, the waitress poured hot tea and then left respectfully. The huge doors were tightly closed, and the soundproofing was very good. Once the doors were closed, it was as if they were completely separated from the outside world. With no outsiders around, Zhu Zheng's expression immediately became serious and earnest. He stared at Zhang Yi and asked, "Zhang Yi, did Pjigon say when we should send people to mine the Yuan ore?" Zhang Yi's hand tapped lightly on the coffee table. "We'll have to wait a while. After all, the battle was too fierce, and there are still earth centipedes underground that haven't been completely cleared out. We need to ensure safety during mining, don't you think?" Zhu Zheng nodded, "That's true." His expression seemed a little regretful. After all, he had longed for this magical new resource for a long time. Zhu Zheng picked up his teacup and took a sip of hot tea. "Zhang Yi, I heard that you performed exceptionally well this time and got more than 10% of the Yuan stone vein. Is that true?" Zhang Yi said lightly, "That's right." He held up 3 fingers to Zhu Zheng, "I got a full 30%. Zhu Zheng's eyes suddenly flashed with eagerness, as if a greedy landlord had discovered a dragon's treasure, and his body leaned toward Zhang Yi. 30%. A full 30% of the Yuan ore, this immense wealth has finally fallen into. He paused and changed his words, the hands of the prodigy of the Jiangnan region. Zhang Yi smiled without saying a word. The smile on Zhu Zheng's face was somewhat fawning as he rubbed his hands together excitedly and said, "Zhang Yi, you can't possibly use such a huge amount of resources. Can I exchange some supplies with you?" Zhang Yi had already thought of this. He was just waiting for Zhu Zheng to bring it up. "We don't lack basic supplies. But you can exchange weapons with me for Yuan stones." Although Lu Karen was able to make weapons, she had to forge them by herself, which required physical strength and supernatural abilities. Therefore, Lu Karen was more suited to crafting fine weapons, but she was not good at producing large quantities of standard weapons. This was not a problem at all for Blizzard City, which had an armory.